I am so incredibly excited to have learned about Tara Walker Lyons. And I'm going to tell a little bit more about her as she's our 2020 P.A.X.A parent. A P.A.X.A parent is someone who displays courage in the face of child sex abuse and uses their unique voice as a parent to publicly elevate discussions around P.A.X.A's core mission, the prevention, uncovering, and healing from child sex abuse. This year's P.A.X.A parent joins Michelle Kramer, last year's honoree, who used her voice as a parent to free her daughter, Dominique Gardner, from the psychological grasp of sexual predator and R&B superstar R. Kelly. A P.A.X.A parent is uniquely qualified to share their personal story, their personal fight turned public example, to inspire all of us to be better advocates for children. Our 2020 P.A.X.A parent is Tara Walker Lyons, a mobilizing force whose work to address child sex abuse within her Native American community has had far-reaching effects, most notably the passing of Tara's Law in Montana, the statewide 2017 legislation that established the groundwork for how school districts must address childhood sexual abuse in the classroom. We are proud to have Tara here with us to share her personal story of abuse, to talk about the work that she's done to affect change, and more importantly, to highlight the work that is yet to be done from a parent's perspective. For there's nothing more noble, more distinguishable than a victim of child sexual abuse saying enough is enough, time to break the cycle of abuse. This parent is doing laudable work in the prevention sphere of P.A.X.A's mission statement, and we are proud to provide her with this recognition. She's responsible for having the uncomfortable public conversations that are required to make a difference and affect change. So without further ado, on behalf of P.A.X.A, I'm proud to introduce and to announce Tara Walker Lyons. Welcome, Tara.
Hello, Tanya. Thank you so much. I want to quickly say thank you to the organization P.A.X.A for your work and for honoring me with this award. Quickly, I just want to mention that, Tanya had already mentioned, I'm Native American, I'm Blackfeet, I come from the state of Montana. And something to know about being Native American is you are at a higher risk of being sexually abused as a child. Unfortunately, I was sexually abused from the ages 6 until 12. I was abused by my stepfather. And unfortunately, my mother chose my stepfather over me. And as a parent, I think that there are 3 cardinal rules that I want to share with you guys tonight about doing the right thing and doing right by your kid. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, but before I do, I just want to share these 3 rules with you. The first rule is to always believe your child. It's very, very rare for a child to come to an adult with false allegations of abuse. It just doesn't happen. If a child comes to you and says that these things happen, then they're very likely true. The second rule is always report to authorities. If a child comes to you about allegations of childhood sexual abuse, you need to go to the cops, and you need to do so immediately. And third, you always choose your child over anyone and everything. In my case, my mom didn't choose me. When I was 12 years old, my best friend, who was a little bit younger than me, we ran from my house and ran to the sheriff's house down the street from where my mom lived. So it was the middle of the night, and her and I found ourselves running down this alleyway, trying to get to a police officer's house so we could turn my stepfather in. So we did that. The police officer's wife answered the back door, and when she saw us standing there, she was astounded. She couldn't understand what was going on. And we told her, that my stepfather had been sexually abusing us and we needed to turn him in to the authorities. So that night, my friend, she was able to go home to her parents, but my mom told the police that she didn't want anything to do with me. And so I was taken to a children's shelter in Montana's capital city, the city of Helena. The children's shelter that I went to was called Margaret Stewart Children's Shelter. I remember out of my entire story, that was the most terrifying moment, was being told that my mom didn't want anything to do with my story. She wanted to back away from it and just send me away, apparently. And so my mom decided ultimately to choose a sexual predator over me. My mom died this summer. She died from pancreatic cancer in July of this year. My story sort of became a focus in the news here in Montana in 2015. I had realized that there were young kids still staying the night at my mom's house with my stepfather present, and I became concerned that there were children that could possibly be abused. So I went to the news, I used social media, and I began speaking about my story as loudly as I could. And thankfully, in a state like Montana, I was listened to. We have a pretty small population here. And so when I started to speak out about my story, people really wanted to listen to me and they wanted to support me. And so before I knew it, I was speaking in schools. I speak in prisons regularly. And I started to hit the road and start sharing my story with anyone who would listen. Before I knew it, I found myself at the Capitol building in Helena and started to pass laws. Tanya had mentioned Tara's law was passed in 2017, but last year I helped pass 2 additional laws. The first law that I helped to pass was established to make it illegal for a teacher to have a sexual relationship with a student. Before this law was passed, it was legally permissible for a teacher to have a relationship or sexual relationship with a student. And as most of you in the advocacy world know, that's a power dynamic that isn't okay. So we changed that and made that illegal. And then as Tim Lennon had mentioned earlier, the statute of limitation reform. Last year, I spearheaded an effort here in Montana that was ultimately successful. And we eliminated the statute of limitations for childhood sexual abuse crimes. And we extended the civil statute of limitations so that Montana survivors can sue their abusers and not be time barred by a statutory limit. When I was 26 years old, I was contacted by an attorney here in Montana. And this attorney at first kind of scared me. I thought, I was going public with my story and my face was in the newspapers. And I thought, maybe I was in trouble. I didn't know. I was so young. I had no idea how these things worked. But this attorney contacted me and she said that she wanted to meet with me. And so I did. I sat down with this attorney one day in her office and she explained to me that she was currently in the middle of suing the Catholic Church. She said that one of the victims in her case knew me when I was a child. And this person was sexually abused by a priest in a missionary school here in Montana. And this person saw my story in the news and he decided to contact his lawyer and ask her to help me. And so here, I was kind of starstruck. For me, when the Catholic Church story broke, I was a young kid and I didn't understand a lot about it because I was pretty young. And so when she told me that she was currently in the middle of suing the Catholic Church and told me what she was up against, I was almost starstruck. I couldn't believe it. So within about 6 months, her and I put together my paperwork and got a lawsuit organized. And we served my stepfather on my birthday. My 28th birthday, he was served. So that lawsuit ended up digging up history from my story. It basically exposed that my mom not only stood by my stepfather, but she basically went to battle for him. She wrote letters and she did everything she could to try to get him out of trouble. And so reading this information was really heartbreaking for me. So in my story, my mom failed me. There's just no 2 ways around that fact. My mom didn't do the right thing. She broke the 3 cardinal rules. She didn't believe me. She chose a man over me, and she failed to call the police. So now, as an advocate, I feel it's my job to share with parents how devastating it can be when those three rules are broken. I'm an adult who has overcome addiction. I've overcome mental health issues. Being an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse is really hard. It's not easy. And events like this give me hope. Organizations like P.A.X.A give me hope because it makes victims like myself feel like our story was not for nothing. When someone goes through a tremendous amount of suffering, it can feel very lonely. But in the last couple of years, organizations like P.A.X.A or SNAP, they've come up and supported people like me and given us a voice. And I'll always feel so thankful for that. I was asked a question about what I would like to leave my audience with, or what I would like to leave all of you with after hearing me speak. What I want to convey to you, you've probably heard before, and that is that your voice matters. When I first started this, I was just a kid. I was in my early 20s. I had a newborn. I had no clue how to navigate the Capitol building in my state. I had no clue how to even make a law. I had no clue about anything. All I had to do was just drive my anger into passion, basically turn the frustration and anger that I had and turn it into passion. And so what I want to convey to you guys is that your voice matters. Even if it feels small, one day it can feel big. And don't be afraid to use it, because there's so many people out there who are just waiting for permission to share their story. I also want to thank Tim Lennon. I've been connected with you on Facebook for a little while, but for me, I have a personal connection, I feel, to the Catholic Church and their whole story here in Montana. And so I look at you with a great admiration, and I'm very lucky to know you. There was one more part of my story that I just wanted to share with you all. The night that my best friend and I ran from my mom's house to the police officer's house in the middle of the night, I was really nervous, especially when I first saw the police officer. He came downstairs and he was wearing his full uniform, and he had his gun belt on, and he had pepper spray and handcuffs. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this is like a really good cop. I thought, like, dang, he's on it. He's ready to go fight crimes, like right in the middle of the night, you know? Well, that night, I guess, he did his job the best he could. But about 2 years ago, I found out in the headlines here in Montana that very police officer that I ran to was charged with sexually abusing his own daughter. And he was convicted, and he actually was sentenced just this year in April. And he will be spending decades in prison for child pornography, as well as childhood sexual abuse. So this was someone that I looked at as a hero in my story, and ended up being a predator. So it really can be anyone in your community. It can be anyone in your circle. It can be anyone in your family. And it's up to you as a parent, as an auntie, as a sister, as anyone in the community should feel the need to protect children. Watch for the warning signs. I know that P.A.X.A has a lot of great materials and a lot of great educational materials to help you with identifying the warning signs. But identifying the warning signs is probably the biggest line of defense in protecting kids. So with that, I just want to say thank you guys again, and I'm definitely enjoying this event. So